Thanks, Lawrence. Is that all right? Okay. Sure, might as well. Hi, how's it going? Thanks for the introduction. I'm a researcher. I'm focused mainly on user experience, but more broadly on people and technology and how they intersect and interact, coming mostly from a social science perspective. So, as Lara said, before I moved into research, I spent 10 years working for digital media companies. And it was in these roles that I found myself constantly surprised by how the technology itself seemed to be considered more important than the people who were expected to use it. So I actually went into research to try and see if I could get to the bottom of this and ask the question, how the hell do we get to a place where including human considerations in the design process through activities aimed at discovery and gaining empathy was often met with such resistance and lack of understanding in the organization. So one of the conclusions I've come to is that there's a kind of a significant cultural divide between people who consider themselves technology people and people who consider themselves people people. So in the blurb describing my talk, I said I wanted to talk about the history of design and technology, but it's actually more accurate to say I want to talk about the tradition of thinking about design and technology that we've inherited in the West, which often has nothing to do with the reality of design and technology. So the way we categorize and think about these disciplines is heavily influenced by categories established by the Greeks over 2,500 years ago. And these have set the foundation for Western philosophy, out of which has arisen our entire scientific tradition. And then the 17th century, during the Enlightenment, the scientific method or process was formalized. And this was based on an underlying philosophy of letting reality speak for itself, so without human interference or interpretation. And it's based also on principles like empiricism and reductionism, which is basically looking at a physical object and reducing it down to its simplest components. So working in strictly controlled environments and with simple observable problems, scientists propose hypotheses and design experiments to test them. And this method has been extremely successful. It has resulted in huge societal advancements and has allowed us to counter politics and opinion and reveal truths about ourselves and the universe in which we live. So what has technology got to do with this and design? So, I'll tell you now. Technology is the application of scientific knowledge, according to the Oxford English Dictionary. Therefore, that is what it is. It is the application of science, nothing else. So this definition of industrial design brings another dimension, art, into the mix. But it still doesn't challenge the fundamental assumption of a single expert taking something already formulated and applying it to a problem. It still presupposes that it can be done without human interference or interpretation. And you can see the appeal of aligning technology and design with science. Science is prestigious, and it's a proven method, it's logical, and it's very, very measurable. But design doesn't deal with straightforward, observable problems. Design addresses highly complex human and social needs, or wicked problems. And they require very human activities like creativity, inspiration, collaboration, and negotiation to resolve. And if that wasn't enough, design and use are situated in highly complex virtual and social environments that we call things like supply chains, ecosystems, services, or experiences. So for all the advantages of the traditional scientific method, and there are many, on its own it is not enough to solve design problems. But because these scientific concepts and processes are still dominant in how our society interprets reality, its reach goes far beyond the lab. So in business, we find ourselves being able to talk about people as resources and assets, but are uncomfortable talking about humans and people, which means that human-centered design is constrained even in terms of the words we can use to describe it. And this influences how research and development are funded, what kind of technology gets commissioned, and what kind of technology and structures we all end up having to live with. So trying to introduce activities like discovery and empathy into the design process actually represents a radical departure from existing thinking, and in fact appears to challenge it, even though, as many of you I'm sure know, they actually work together really well. And it's the same debate that's going on in and between the so-called natural sciences and social sciences. And of course, from the social sciences that we get our user research methods like interviews and observation. So what's the solution? Well, you guys. People working in interaction and user experience design today are at the forefront of truly understanding the complexity of the design process and the multidisciplinary nature of it. And being able to show proof of the success of these approaches by sharing successes and case studies will help us all to work together to make design better. Thank you.